it's Nancy, and I had the treat of going to cocktails tonight with one of my favorite people, Betsy Palay, and she's the president of the Association of Medical Illustrators, and I thought it'd be interesting to hear her perspective about what's the direction that visual communications is going in the medical community. So I want to introduce you to Betsy.
Hello.
We're sitting in her car, so you might hear some trains go by.
Yes.
But I thought it would be interesting for you to tell us how visual communications in the medical space has been changing and kind of what's on the minds of medical communicators right now.
Great question. Well, there's some really exciting things going on in our field right now. And one thing that's happening is that, like every other field in the world, medical illustration has become more computerized over the last decade in particular. And also the programs have become more sophisticated. So many illustrators, instead of working with pen and ink or airbrush or other media, are now often working in very complex 3D animation programs and creating some just stupendous and very exciting visuals. And all of that is wonderful, and they're exciting to look at and get people interested in science and can communicate some very complex concepts on the molecular and cellular level where some real exciting things are happening. But one problem with that is sometimes with all the glitz and the sexiness of these color animated images, the storytelling component can sometimes be lost. Or another thing I might say is that there are different people who have skills in storytelling versus the people who have skills in creating those 3D animations.
So the people that dig into the tools aren't necessarily the same people who can actually deconstruct how a method of action might need to happen.
Right, or even talk to the client up front. When you're just starting a project, somebody needs to sit down with a scientist or a medical educator or someone like that who needs a visual created for explaining something. And it takes an art director or a creative director, somebody who has good communication skills and good conceptual skills to sit down with the client, draw out from them what is the problem, what's the story, how do we best put that story together, how do we put it together with words, to do perhaps a storyboard and the very, very rough conceptualization. That's one whole part of the storytelling skill. And then, as you know very well, it evolves and develops, and then the back end of it is to finally create that final beautiful visual in color and 3D and motion. But it's a process. And somebody a long time ago, Suzanne West, who was one of the first graphic designers to work with computers, said to me that the problem with computers is it allows you to start at the end.
Yeah.
And a lot of us still feel like that conceptual part, if there's nothing that beats just taking a pencil and a piece of paper and those little rough, ugly sketches that you draw out to help you conceptualize something. And what's the story? Who are the what are the elements? What are the pieces? How do we start this? What process is that? That's a very different process than putting the final gorgeous piece together at the end. And so I think that our profession now is just facing this challenge of, can one person be expected to do that full spectrum of tasks? Do we need to have people who have different skills?
Like specialists along the path of the creative process.
Right.
Yeah,
some people would specialize at the front end, some at the back end, some in between. And those seem to me to be very different skills. Yeah. And so I think that we need to be sure that when we're encouraging people to come into our profession, that we encourage everybody along that spectrum and don't discourage people who are the good storytellers.
Yeah.
Because they go, oh, well, I don't want to sit there and just work on computers all day. I like the excitement of learning the science and breaking it down into its components and the challenge of how do you put this into a story? How do you put this into visuals? How do I explain this to somebody? We need people at that front end. And we want to be sure that we're attracting those people to the profession and not just the people who are working at the end of creating those beautiful
final
visuals.
visual product, yeah.
Because it's a very different process, isn't it? As
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Really
it's someone
different.
who knows the tool versus someone who knows the concept.
Right, and the
very
tools
different.
always change, and they're going to evolve and change, and we can't ever let, the tool or the technology become the focus. We always have to think, what is the end that and the end is always making a scientific concept understandable.
Taking the complex and making it simple.
Taking the complex and making it simple.
That's what I love. I think that's the phrase that we kind of met on and connected on. And so
Right.
I just want to thank Betsy for giving her opinions to you guys, and I hope you enjoy this posting. Bye. Say bye.
Bye. Thank you, Nancy.